From AIT Studios in Abuja, Nigeria, this is the O&M Late Show with Obiora Ilo and Mamode Akuga.
Hello and welcome. It's the O&M Late Show. Sincere apologies for coming a little bit behind schedule. My name is Mamode Akuga and I welcome you to this edition of our program today. Part 2, as a matter of fact, of Nigeria at 57, which way forward. And gladly today, Obiora is in the studios.
Hello, thanks for joining us. The debate continues. Nigeria at 57, and we are still talking like we're starting the union all over. So today we are continuing the discussion, but it's on a day that in faraway United States, to be very precise, Las Vegas, Nevada, we had that senseless massacre of innocent people just having fun. Someone who got tired of life, instead of just going by himself, decides to go with more than 59 people, leaving about 520 something others injured. Very many of them very critical. Of course, the Nigerian government, speaking through the Foreign Affairs Minister, has condoled with the people of the United States. We understand that President Trump will be going there tomorrow. Yeah. He's somewhere in Puerto Rico today. Also, battling with the natural disaster that has done so much damage to that island state of America.
But Obiora, while Nigeria will always celebrate the 1st of October as Day of Independence, I think the people of Las Vegas, Nevada, as well as the entire United States of America will always remember October 1st, as a day in which they had the most brutal, massacre
in their history.
Yes,
in modern history in America.
History,
But Mamode, what really worries me is that we see these attacks, these senseless killings in the United States every day, and a good number of people are saying there must be gun control. And you still see the other group who insist, they keep talking about, is it the Second or First Amendment? Yeah. That gives them a right to do whatever they want. And a lot of people, I watched TV today, and someone was saying, look, how could you, when we see this in almost on a weekly basis, and we can't put some tighter control on gun ownership in the United States?
I think that on that matter, I think I will side with even Americans who say that even this incident will not cause much of a change. Because the National Rifle Association of America, it's a 5 million strong association with a lot of cash, a lot of money, and they have so much power that they make contributions to campaign funds for candidates, and so it's one group that is very difficult to go against, in the United States. But what I like about America, and for me, this really, touches me. Anytime there's a tragedy, the love, the camaraderie, the human sympathy and empathy that Americans display towards one another, it's just overwhelming. And you needed to see the long queues of people waiting hours just to donate blood, waiting in a long queue for hours just to be able to say, take my blood if you can help save a life. People coming in there with already they set up a fundraising GoFundMe, or what is it called, online.
One company made a contribution of $3 million between yesterday and today.
I mean, if nothing, I love America for that. The love that people show towards one another. And even while the shooting was going on, you know, I mean,
People
we've
were
seen
already coming as first responders.
Yes, even among people who were running, you could
They were
see,
looking out for each
yeah,
other.
looking out for each other. And I mean that thing about
I think-
America
I-
is enviable.
I think that what makes that happen is this belief in country, this nationalistic, that's
Patriotism,
something
yeah.
that happens to one happens to,
To
all
all
of
of
us.
them.
You know, just like you hear the Israelis, or anything happens to one Israeli, I mean, it's like a national tragedy.
We
and they
need to
believe
learn
so
that.
mu- They believe, you know, there was a man that came on this program and said, you know, he said we found a country, but we have not built a nation. You know, something like that. Not actually
That's
his
deep,
words.
yeah.
But I think that when we start, you know, feeling that this country is ours, that everyone in this country is our brother, then that kind of feeling will be exuded when in a whole lot of things, even in happiness, in sorrow, in sadness, because that's what you see in the United States. If they're celebrating, everybody's celebrating.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
and if
mean,
they're
several videos,
everywhere.
you know, everywhere. It's, you know.
In Puerto Rico, for instance, people moved all the way from the other end of America to go help, you know.
Fire department from New York and all that.
As
They went-
individuals, not
Yes,
as, you know.
not as government.
Not as
they went
government.
as individuals just to help. You know, I think we need, as a nation, we need to imbibe that, and we need to begin to display that brotherliness. But let's come back to our nation.
Yes, because if we have that kind of feeling, what is going on in the country today will not go on.
Yes.
This sense of division, this sense of individualism, tribal individualism, you know, I don't think it will happen.
So we need to promote unity amongst different
And
people.
as we celebrate 57 years, it is time for us to also, you know, do a kind of retreat and refocus, even in the debate for restructuring. If we do it with some love, you know, if we do it with some patriotism, I think the language and the color of it will be different. The hate languages will go away.
The hate speech will be away from it. All right, we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring our guests into the studios. Already we have Gaskiya, who is already in the studios to talk with us. Hopefully, we should be able to get online to Benin to talk to Dr. Don Pedro Baseki, who will also be talking to us about the way forward for Nigeria and what a lot of minorities in the Nigerian project are thinking about the way forward for our country. Don't go away. We'll be back in a short while.
Are you watching Nigeria's biggest late night show? In a recessed economy, an economy that had gone into recession through no fault of ours, but the fault of the previous government, who refused to save anything, when they sold oil at $110 a barrel, and were producing 2.2 million barrels out of OPEC quota, full capacity, they saved nothing.
Change in the leadership in National Assembly is normal. It is not very abnormal. No. We are 109 in the Senate. Only 10 people are in the leadership. 99 are not in the leadership, and I'm not better than any of them.
I don't have issues. I don't have any strained relationship with the governor because I left PDP. PDP is dead. PDP is dead.
Poverty is inherited from one generation to another. And unless you do something from outside, an external support, those people will never leave poverty.
Giving out a welfare package, they've done the basic things. They are giving out something extra to uplift. We have not done the basic.
We know the sufferings of the people. We hear the cries of the people. We are sad about the hardships that they are going through. I can say from personal knowledge that that is one of the things dearest to the hearts of Mr. President.
Things are changing. Yes, to the ordinary man, it's difficult for you to see those changes because for now, those things that need to change gets back to the roots of a sustained fight against corruption. One of them is the need to change the laws.
When people say to me, Nigeria is non-negotiable, I say, please be careful what you say. The unity of Nigeria should not be negotiable. But the terms and conditions of staying together must be negotiated. It has always been negotiated.
O&M show with Obiora Ilo and Mahmoudia Koga. Tuesdays, 11 p.m. and on Sunday, 2 p.m.
You're still watching the O&M show. We now invite Gaskiya to join us in the studios. And very shortly, of course, we will be online to Benin City.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
So, first, let me take your reaction before we go into Nigeria at 57. The president, of course, had an Independence Day broadcast on which was running a few moments ago on AIT, a replay of that broadcast. What was your reaction to the president's message?
There is a fundamental problem, and the fundamental problem is not necessarily in the content of the message, but in the way and manner in which the message was also delivered. So, I mean, it's okay to talk about, particularly about Nigeria's challenges at the moment, talk about the need for unity, but there's also a certain way in which you pass the message on that can cause more damage than actually what it is set out, to achieve. I mean, so, and I would use Spain as an example, and the ongoing crisis in Catalonia at the moment. So you can see how a government can respond to a crisis. I mean, the government of Spain had the sympathy of the world in terms of nobody wanting Catalonia to go, but the response of the government of Spain has shifted opinion, and even amongst people who are like undecided within Catalonia itself, it's like pushing people, to the edge. So there's something to say about the way a message is passed. So some of the language, some of the way and manner in which persons were dismissed and groups were dismissed. So I know we talk a lot about youthful exuberance when we refer to youths, to younger persons and the rest of that. But when people are talking about issues that have become, or that is gaining traction, that have become like national issues on the front border, they shouldn't be dismissed, even if you think that people
don't agree with them.
Yeah, that you don't agree with them, or that people are even talking nonsense. You are in a position at that moment where your response should not be dismissive, even if you don't think any good of that. The other part of the speech, which is which I refer to, have since referred to as a process of self-adulation. So this, in terms of what the achievements have been, and of the government has been, which I think was an attempt to redirect, to refocus attention away from the divisive, messages across the country, but to try and refocus on the project of getting Nigeria out of the mess, which has been the message of the ruling party.
But as a civil society person, when the president started saying, look, that type of advocacy, that some people are, talking, trying to get into to call for referendum or call for, they will not tolerate that type of advocacy. You know, I was talking the other day, and I told some of the guests that, you know, when you talk about advocacy, to me, what I have in my head, I'm not thinking of people who are violent or people who have guns and all that. I'm thinking, when people talk about advocacy, I'm thinking people who just talk and, you know, go on a campaign, but non-violently. And so when you start saying that you won't tolerate that type of, as a civil society person that you are, you know, how did that strike you?
Okay, well, I mean, two things. Well, the first thing is that it was like, first, true to character, because one of the things that has not happened is that a lot of things have remained constant about the person of President Muhammadu Buhari. One of the things that has remained constant, along with all the other things that are said about him, integrity and the rest of that, is also the fact that he is actually not used to functioning in a liberal environment, in an environment where opinions are exchanged, where you have to actually debate issues in order for you to arrive at decisions. So that was true to character, but one would have also thought that having been on this job for 2 years now, that you would understand, particularly with the experience of IPOB and the experience of Nnamdi Kanu, that you would have understood by now that if you decide to use a sledgehammer to kill a fly, what you eventually most likely are going to bring into being is a monster. You're going to get, because if the fly survives the sledgehammer, then you are in trouble. And so it's important not to put your strongest feet first. It's important for you to it's actually at this moment what would have been expected from a president of Nigeria at this moment is to sound reconciliatory. Is to say, okay, as father of the nation, a lot of things are dividing us, but this is time that we need to sit down together as a family and talk about our family, talk about our country, Nigeria, and the rest of that. But when you say to people, you dismiss them, when you say that you will not tolerate things that people are saying, then you are using a language that what it does is that it reinforces, dissidence. And then it makes people who are actually opposed to you to become even more opposed, to you, and that's not the right thing to do at the moment.
Okay, we'll come to the main issue of our discussion this night, which is Nigeria at 57. But we are going all the way to Benin, where we have Dr. Pedro Obaseki. Dr. Obaseki, welcome to the O&M show.
How are you, sir?
Dr. Pedro, I think someone is trying to hear what you're telling us, and the person is moving with a radio set very near you. Can they move away a little?
The truth of the matter is, it was me trying to hear
you. Doctor, because of your pedigree, I didn't want to believe that you were actually doing that. So I wanted to push the blame to someone else.
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
Pedro,
Happy Independence Day.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you lead a movement, the Midwest movement. Yes. For the purpose of our discussion today, you are within the Nigerian project classified as minorities. Yes, but let me ask you, in all this that is happening in Nigeria today, with the call for, restructuring and all that, from a minorities point of view and from the organization, the Midwest movement, what's your reaction to what is happening?
Nigeria is at a threshold. And anybody who pretends that things are not going awry is actually being economical with the truth. Nigeria is bigger than all the politicians, all the players, Mr. President, all of us put together. Nigeria is a project that can only work as an ensemble, where the sum total of the whole must be taken into consideration. Nigeria right now is at the juncture of either falling apart if they don't mind the way things are handled, or coming together stronger, because there's a saying amongst Edo and Delta peoples that all the trouble when you take the look for person, now they turn beautiful thing for guinea fowl. So what I mean by that is this: Nigeria is passing through a phase, and this phase is a phase that will make or break, and no other way than to sit down, articulate our grievances, identify our strong points, and then, like a structural engineer, begin to build the right columns and pillars so as to create a proper vertebrae for this country. Nigeria right now is like a ship rudderless. And I think that anybody who takes that lightly does not wish this country well. And I truly believe that when we are through this phase, this country will be a greater country where the minority rights are protected, assured, guaranteed. We will not be the collateral damage of some saber rattling by some noisy or even quiet neighbors. That is the truth. And we want to prove to them, we of the Midwest. People keep forgetting that the Midwest is the singularly legal entity in this country because we are created constitutionally. I'm laying emphasis on those words deliberately. We were not created by a bunch of persons who wear khaki, who will sit inside the sanctuary of their locked doors after maybe taking paraga and then begin to draw lines and draw boundaries. We were created by the 1963 national plebiscite or referendum. And this country has only done 2 referenda. Ever. One for the northern and southern Cameroons in February 1961, and then on July 3rd, 1963, which created the Midwest. Ever since, nothing else has gone right. So today, Nigeria is at this junction. We have been overfed by an avalanche of lies, and now people are aware. All of us have our own television stations in our hands via Facebook and YouTube. Nobody is going to play John Wayne with any of us. So we, the minorities, we don't think we are actually minorities because we are like the broom. We have come together, the 12 tribes of the Midwest, to vociferously assert our Nigerianness within the Nigerian project. This is not a partisan agitation.
Okay.
Neither is it yeah.
Okay, Dr. Pedro.
Yes, sir.
The language we hear everywhere in Nigeria today is marginalization. We thought it used to be a vocabulary of the minorities, but we find out that even in the deep forests and towns of Hausa land and Fulani land, we hear of marginalization. You go back to Biafra, there's marginalization. You talk about the thieves, there are marginalization. South-South marginalization. How do we get out of this marginalization that has overtaken every part of Nigeria?
You see, do you know why that is happening? Because Nigerians have been taught not to read history anymore. Let me tell you the truth. The Fulanis are a minority. They actually make up less than 7.8% of the total population. They are a minority. But it is the perception quotient that has increased. So there are many minorities in Kaduna State, the Kwai, Samina, Kazango, Kataf, Kaguru, Kagoma. They are all marginalized. Same thing with the Bachama, same thing with the Kitivi, but same thing with the Isoko Urobo, Ishekiri, Jo, Edo, Esan, Akoko Edo, which is the oldest local government area in living history. So we are the most marginalized. Now, let me tell you why I keep coming back here. In the old Nigeria, men from all tribes and crannies of this country sat and decided to agree. And at points where they disagreed, they all drew the lines. Now, ever since the early hours of the 15th of January 1966, that has changed. So we are today the product of the design of a few men who wear khaki or who wear green or who wear camouflage, aided and abetted by their army of civilian apologists. That is the truth. If you say marginalization, the Isoko man is a marginalized man. Because up to just 17 or 15 years ago, in spite of having the deepest inland resource of oil in Nigeria, they were still using ROEB. I know you don't know what that means, Obiola. It's Rural Electricity Board, where a massive generator will be turned on at Ilo Logo or turned on at Uzere. So as to give the people who give this nation, on whose soil reading backs and on whose destroyed ecological system, the nation feeds on to build the massive structures in Abuja. That cannot happen anymore. We are saying that we of the Midwest, Edo and Delta, the only truly, really created part of this country, that we want to remain proud Nigerians. But there must be a Nigeria we should be proud of. So to change the Nigerian state, the Nigerian people must change their state of mind. That is key. And in doing that, you must allow all the federating, see that's the word, federating units, to sit and agree to what extent they want to federate and with whom they want to federate with.
Okay. All right,
Pedro. Come together ab initio by a few band of men sitting in Aso Rock, legislating and dispensing and allocating. That is reverse osmosis. That is not how a federation should be. Nigeria is the antithesis of actually what a federation should be. If you are a student of politics and use Nigeria as a case study to see that is how a federation will be, you will score F9.
Okay, done. Dr. Pedro, please stay with us on the program. We're likely to get back to you if there are some things that Jair is. Yeah, so maybe before we end the program, so just listen and watch whatever Jair is going to say. If you have anything to react before we go, I think we'll have the opportunity to get back to you to quickly react to one or two things. Okay.
Okay, I'm on standby.
Yes. We're listening to Dr. Pedro Obaseki and nodding your head and smiling in the process. Yeah. You seem to agree with him, or you think that, probably what he was talking about probably rests in a different...
Okay, I think that this is not a case of being in agreement or not being in agreement with him, but I think that I have challenges with some of the issues, with not just the issues as presented by him, but the debate about restructuring in general in the country. And
what are those challenges?
And that's what I want to state now. You see, because one of the things that I've said, I'm the first to agree that this country has underperformed, grossly underperformed. We have not realized our potential as a country. And when you look at all of the things that is happening to this country, including the agitation for decisionist agitation and the restructuring agitation, what does that tell you? Failure of governance, failure of leadership, failure of the leadership of the political elite. And you see, when the elites talk about restructuring, my biggest challenge with the political elites who talk about restructuring is they do not appear to be sincere. And what do I mean by not being sincere? I mean, it appears as if the quest for the debate around restructuring comes up every time there is a need to negotiate or renegotiate, access to state, to
power.
to state treasury. No concrete proposals are put on the ground, because if the Nigerian elites, if they were serious about restructuring, the way they are talking about it, this country would have been restructured. Because who are the people? They are the opinion leaders. They are the people who you refer to as the leaders of their sociocultural association. I made a reference to Catalonia the other time. Or you talk about Quebec in Canada. You see, these are the political elites. They have massified the idea of the necessity for this kind of thing to happen, and so they can actually win elections on the basis of that and run their governments. So you have Afenifere, for example. You have Ohanese in the Igbo, for example. You have the Middle Belt Forum. You have Arewa Consultative Forum. All of these people, if they were truly in control of the situation, and that their opinions are actually really the majority opinions, then it is the people that they support that will be in parliament. So the issue of the National Assembly being restructuring would not have arisen in the first place. So that's why I said the political elites are not easy. And the moment you challenge them and you say, what precisely do you mean by restructuring? When you begin to ask them to say, give content to it, because slogans are not negotiated. I'm happy that Dr. Pedro mentioned the fact that the pre-independence negotiations, those who went to those negotiations went with concrete proposals. They had a framework, they had notions of how a constitution, a federal constitution would look like. They went there, NCNC, asking for 10 federating units, Action Group asking for 8 federating units. They had maps, they had an idea of what these federating units look like. They also went there with what would be the relationship between the federal center and the federating units. And so it was those conversations that led to that first constitution and the exclusive list and the concurrent list. Now people are not talking, people just talk about devolution of power. What powers do you want to be devolved? State it very clearly so that we can negotiate. Then when you tell them, how do you want to restructure Nigeria? They come up with very different things. People want to eat their cake and still have it. So you want 6 regions, according to the Yoruba leaders. You want Afenifere. At the recent Yoruba summit, you want 6 regions. Okay, that would be the federating unit, but you still want the 36 states to remain. You want these state structures to remain within the regions. You want every region to have the power to create new states. Then you want states within the regions to have power to create local government. It's just job for the boys. How does that affect the situation in the country? The Middle Belt leaders came up the other day and said they want 12 regions. And with the 12 regions, they still want the 36 states to remain. So you are going to have ostensibly regional governments with the executive, with their commissioners, with their legislature, with their judiciary, and then you are going to have state with similar things. So how does that address the challenges that we are facing? And in all of this, nobody is talking about citizenship. Nobody is talking about Nigerian citizenship. Nobody is saying that once you restructure this country, and I, for example, I'm supposed to have originally to have originated, my roots are in one region that is that's part of the federating unit, but I live in a different part of the country. What are my rights? Because the biggest challenge facing us as a country today, and I was listening to you when you were actually introducing the program, and you were talking about America and talking about why citizens, why they bond. That's citizenship. There must first be citizenship before you can have nationalism, before you can have patriotism. There is no Nigerian citizenship because I don't have the same rights that I have where I'm at my so-called state of origin, and now that I'm based in Abuja. I have a daughter who is in SS3, who was not born in my state of origin, who does not know people in my state of origin, but who will be told every time she needs something to go, even not just to her state of origin, but also to her local government of origin. How does that make sense? We are not building a Nigerian citizenship, and if we don't build a Nigerian citizenship, all of these problems, let's face facts. Minority rights are human rights. A state and a nation that violates human rights cannot respect minority rights, because minority rights women's rights, labor rights are all integral parts of human rights. So if a state is built in a manner that it violates human rights, and one of the biggest rights of a person belonging to a state is citizenship. If you violate that, then there can be nothing. So imagine a situation if we have succeeded in building a Nigerian citizenship where we have equal rights wherever we are. It means that wherever I am based, I have access to the same things that a Nigerian would have access to. Who is going to be talking about the need for to have regions or to have to restructure the country? Because anywhere you are,
about his or her tribe.
Exactly. No, but there will be no need to talk about that. So that's the biggest challenge.
Someone actually said that maybe we should delete from
our
documentation, local government, religion, and just say we are Nigerians.
I will tell you one thing. In the last 20 years, I have refused to fill any form, any part of a form, where we can go to any form that I've refused to fill state of origin, I've refused to fill religion. I can understand if you are taking a census of the country, or a demographic survey, you know, that you may need to have an idea of how many Christians, how many Muslims we have, you know, and so on and so forth. But I'm looking for a job. How does that affect my performance? I'm looking for admission. How does that affect my performance? So I refuse to do that. I'm looking for a contract. How does that affect that? Is it my state that is going to?
But Jahe, how do we de-emphasize the nations within the Nigerian nations?
Absolutely, and that's the point I was making. The first thing is that Nigeria's political elites must have the courage to dispense with indigenship. Simply, that's the first thing. So citizenship is what matters. And if you have been resident, say in Jos, for example, for 20 years, there's absolutely no reason why you need to go back to Port Harcourt in order to contest an election or to do anything. So if we can de-emphasize all of these things, and mind you, Plateau State cannot solve that problem alone. Kaduna State cannot solve that problem. It's a national problem. So it has to be a national solution to it, so that the same thing is applied across the country. So I'm sure that if I'm living elsewhere, it will also, affect. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second thing that you need to do, and which the advocates of, and this is not to say that I do not believe that Nigeria needs to be tinkered with. This is not a perfect structure. But I'm saying that the argument needs to become more qualitative than simply people just throwing wishes around. So one of the things that people are also not talking about is that if we say that all our challenges today emanate from a failure of governance, it follows that we actually also require a comprehensive, radical reform of governance. Yes. And what do I mean by that? At the moment, we have 3 tiers of government. You have the federal government, you have the state government, and then you have the local government, okay? Now, any type of governance, the only types of governance the only places where governance takes place are in the capital cities of these tiers. The federal capital, the state capital, and the local government capitals, headquarters. That's where governance takes place. Now, our communities, all of our communities in Nigeria are technically, in political science parlance, ungoverned spaces because they don't have government. There is no formal government there. The institutions that used to have sovereign authority over the communities, since independence, we have called them custodians of culture, or traditional rulers and custodians of culture. And they play no formal role. And then we say that you now look at the Southern Kaduna crisis, for example. You now say, but people were living together and that they were able to resolve these conflicts in the past. Why can't they resolve it now? In the past, those chiefdoms, those communities had real governments, okay? And so if they entered into a conflict and they were going to reach a peace agreement, their governments would enforce those peace agreements. Now they cannot do that. They have to rely on an external authority to do that. So the kind of restructuring that we also need is also a situation where you also return formal governance back to our communities. I would envisage, one of the things that needs to be done is to have, I call it democratic self-government. So can we formalize can we formalize the CDAs as they exist now, so that they can also play a formal governance, role in Nigeria. And then the other thing that also needs to be done, if we have to de-emphasize all of these things, I agree very much with Dr. Obaseki when he was talking about, Nigeria's federalism being turned on its head.
Yeah.
Look at our current constitution, okay? You have an exclusive list where you have more than 68 items. You have a concurrent list with about 40 items. There is no residual list for the states, okay? That only states can legislate on. You have exclusively only the federal government can legislate. The concurrent list, even the concurrent list, you now say, the constitution now goes further to say that any law that is made by a state that is in contradiction with a federal law, to the extent of that contradiction, remains null and void. So technically, Nigerian states do not have powers to make laws.
To make laws at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. So, so those are the kind of reforms that we need to have. So when you're talking about devolution of powers, those are the kind of things that we really need to do. Now, if we do this, and I also agree with you, if you are going to change revenue, if you are going to say return power to the federated units, it means the power to collect taxes also have to be reversed.
To
go back. Okay? So let the federated units collect the taxes. The only taxes that the federal government should collect are those that have to do with foreign trade. And at the border, the excise, customs
and all that.
The rest, let federated units, collect it and let them pay a tax, an agreed tax. In the First Republic, it was very clear. You collected your tax, you paid, you retained 50% of what you collect. But again, there has to be transparency, an open system where you will know actually what this person has collected. Yeah. And then you also had now had a situation where they paid 30% into what was called a common distributable pool. 20 went to the federal government. The common distributable pool was to say that, okay, look, some regions were more endowed than others.
Let's help them.
Let's help the other regions that are not endowed.
All right, before we go, I think we have Dr. Pedro Obaseki back on the line.
For his last word.
Yes, we'll give you the last
I wish I wasn't saying last words. Because he has raised some very critical issues that are important. And a summation of what he has said is simple, that Nigeria needs to be structurally deconstructed for it to be reconstructed. Now, what the major bane of all these agitations is nothing short of a revert to fiscal federalism. That is why we in the Midwest movement, the Bendel peoples of Edo and Delta, we are calling for a re-federalization of this country. Just because restructure is actually an amorphous word, restructuring from who to what, from where, from why. But when you say re-federalize, go back to that federal structure. The fiscal federalism was simple and it didn't cause any problem. It was a 50-30-20, where the originating region, or the originating federating unit, goes on to 50% of all its resources, and then put 30% in the pool, as we have just said. That helps alleviate the shortcomings in developmental ethos among states that are a little less endowed. That is why America has California as the fifth largest economy in the world, and yet it's just a state within the United States of America. Meanwhile, some states in America, like in Ohio or in Indiana, the governors of those states do not have the same resources, but it does not distort the federal balance. What Nigeria is practicing has thrown this country out of cosmic balance. We of the Midwest, we prefer Nigeria, but we want a more equitable, a more justifiable country that will equitably, depending on contribution to the quota, be able to recompensate or compensate those who are so federated.
All right.
Number two,
we are running out of time.
Just this one, please.
Okay.
In terms of the citizenship, I don't think that killing the indigenization will be it. I'm a very proud Edoma. But you can be Scottish and be British. That is the truth. That is key. You know, and I think the federal government should do well and call all of us to talk, to sit, and find a lasting solution to this enduring problem, or else we'll be faced with an implosion of seismic proportions.
Okay. I think Dr. Pedro's conclusion is a good enough place to leave the program for today. We have to draw the curtain for the program today. I think a lot of very important issues have been brought to light on our discussion today on the way forward for Nigeria at 57. Very, very important things. The promotion of citizenship.
Over indigenship.
Over indigenship. The need to get everybody together to sit down. Our political class need to be sincere.
And they need to refederalize.
They need to refederalize.
Not restructure.
Not restructure. All right, Jai Gaskiya, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And in Benin, Dr. Pedro Obaseki, thank you so much for talking to us by phone all the way from Benin City. My name is Mahmoud Akuga. Thank you all so much for watching.
I'm Obiora Ilo. Let's do it again on Sunday at 2 p.m. Bye for now.
From AIT Studios in Abuja, Nigeria, this is the O&N Late Show with Obiora Ilo and Mamode Akuga.